Hello guys, this is Ibrahim Rahman from Adytech. Welcome back to another video in the HTML series. In today's video, we are going to look at HTML forms. Hopefully you will enjoy the video and learn something new. So let's get started. HTML forms are one of the most important features in web development. They allow users to enter and submit data to a web server. Forms are used for things like login pages, search boxes, registration forms, contact forms, and much more. An HTML form is a section of the web page that contains input elements like text boxes, radio buttons, checkboxes, drop-downs, and much more, where users can fill in information. So when the user clicks submit, the data is sent to a server for processing. Example, like saving it to a database for performing some action. Here is an example of a simple form. The whole of this form gives this output here. For example, the first name text here displays the output here, and the last name text here displays the output, as well as the email text displays this output. This input element gives this output here. This input also gives this output, and this input also gives this output. Of course, the input submit here gives the submit query button we are seeing here. So this is an example of a simple form. Here the user have the possibility to enter their information in this field and then clicks on submit for processing. The HTML form has several elements. So for example, we have the input, the label, select the text area, and much more. So you can use this form element to enter data and then send to the server for further processing. Now, the input element. The HTML input element is one of the most important or the most used elements when it comes to form design in web pages. The input element can be displayed in many ways depending on the type attributes. For example, we have the input here for first name and the input here for last name. So here the user have the possibility to enter their first name as well as the last name. For example, this input field is for the first name and this input field is for the last name. So they have the type of text, so which means the user can enter whatever text they want to enter in these two fields. So this is the essence of the input field. Let us also look at another. We also have another type of input field, which is radio button. So it defines a button where the user have the possibility to select one item out of a number of choices. For example, we have the input field here. This is the input field. So, but it has a type of radio, so which simply means the user can get this output, and at the end of the day, they only have the option to select one. We normally see this in so many forms when we interact with different websites. So here, from what you can see here, the user have only the one possibility to select an item, not all the items here. Checkboxes is also another type of input field. For checkboxes, the user can have the possibility to select more than one item. As you can see here, the user can select this item or this item or the last item. So unlike radio buttons, which only allows the user to select one item, the checkboxes gives user the leverage to select more than one item. They are all input fields. For example, this is the input field, but the type here is checkbox, and here the value is HTML. This HTML value you're seeing is the output that will be displayed for the user, and here the value is CSS. This is the output for the CSS value. The value here is JavaScript. There is the output for this value. So for the checkboxes, the user have the possibility to select more than one item. Another type of input element also is the submit input. Most of the time, we normally see buttons on our forms. it depends upon how the form is being designed. Some forms have button can be added instead of submit, but most of the time there are some web pages that have inputs as a type of submit. It is an input field, but the type of this input field can be shown as what? A button, just because of the submit that is added here. So the output of it can be seen as a button. So this is also another important element when it comes to form designs. We also have the input type of password. Normally, when we create registration and login pages, we normally add passwords as a field. So from what we can see here, the user can enter their username and password. So one good thing about the password input type is that when the user types anything on this input field, you will not be able to see anything simply because of the password type. Okay, you can only be able to see this if you add a password widget here that can display the password that is typed in this field. So this is also important. So when you are creating a login or registration form, the password input type is important, as it can allow users to enter their password when creating a registration or a login page. The input type, we said, there is also another important element when it comes to form design. Now, for the reset input, it allows the users to reset whatever they have typed within the form. For example, you can see the input type here, which has the reset as the type. It is not a text or neither an email, but a reset. So this is the output for the reset. It is also displayed as a button. So when you click on this reset, it can clear whatever information you've typed within the form. That's the essence of the reset. The input type of dates. It is also important that we normally add dates whenever we are adding information on a form. Like for example, here, when you use the date type, it will allow you to enter a specific date as it has the calendar being embedded in it. So when you click on this field, all it will do for you, it will display this entire calendar you are seeing. To display this so that the user has the ability to select a specific date for that input field. Now, max and min are attributes within the date input, which gives the user the ability to select a specific date. There are certain ranges in which the user can only see the date that is being set as max and min. For example, if the maximum date here is supposed to be 1979, so which simply means it cannot go beyond 1979. So meaning 1979 is the maximum year that the user will see on this calendar here. So whereas the minimum here also is 2000. So 2000 is the year that the user will see as the minimum year that is set for this calendar. Another type of input here is the datetime local. The datetime local here is a combination of both the calendar and the time. So the user have the ability to enter a specific date as well as the time. So when you use the datetime local input type, it gives you the calendar here as well as the time. So the user can set a specific date as well as a time for that input field. So it is a combination of the calendar as well as the time. So this is how the datetime local input type works. The email type, it is also another very important type that we normally use when creating registration or login pages. Now, as you can see from the email type, it will give the user the ability to enter their email. So this simply means if the user tries to enter any text here that is not a valid email, what will happen? It will send an error. So you see the user is supposed to enter a valid email. So this email input type is only required for email addresses. Unlike the input type text, here the information that should be entered in this input field is supposed to be an email. So this is how the email input type works. Input type file is also very important when we create our forms. For the input type file, it gives the user the ability to upload several files, starting from Word documents, Excel sheets, PDF documents, images, videos, audios, as the case may be. So the user have the ability to enter all sorts of files. Just with this input type file, the user can upload all sorts of files within their form so that it can be sent for processing. And it is essential because there are times you might want to add an input where the user can be able to upload documents, images, audios, videos, as the case may be. So this is the essence of the input type file. The input type of search is also very important, as users may want to search for specific information within a web page. This is mostly used when it comes to e-commerce websites, as users may tend to search for specific products within that particular website. With this input type search, the user have the ability to see a search field here so that the user can enter whatever information they want to enter in this field. This is how the search type works. The user can enter whatever information here and click on search to search for that information within the web page. The input type tel. This tel is used for telephone numbers. Okay, so this is used so that the user can have the ability to enter their telephone number on this input field. Label is also another important element when it comes to form designs. The label tag defines a label for many form elements. For example, when you use a label for enter full name, it will display so that when the user sees this form, the user will automatically know that, okay, this field is for me to enter my full name. This field is for me to enter my email address. Likewise, the password here. So this is how the label elements work. The placeholder is also another important attribute when it comes to form designs. Like the label, the placeholder attribute is added within the form inputs. It is there. So this will disappear automatically when the user starts to type something here. For example, if I want to type my phone number or email here, the moment I start to type, this will be disappeared. So this is how the placeholder attributes work. It also signifies that this field is for the first name, this field is for the last name, and this is for mobile and email, then this is for the password. The select element is also very important when it comes to form design. This also can be added in various forms. For the select element, it gives the user the ability to select item from this drop down. For example, here, from what we can see, we have a range of products here. So when the user clicks on select a product, this drop down will be displayed for the user, so that when the user clicks on this select a product, he has the ability to select one of these products. So this is how the select element works. You have the select tag here, and you also have options so that the user have the ability to select just one item from these set of items. The action attributes in form designs is also important. The action attribute defines the action that should be performed when the user clicks on the submit or send button on the web page. Usually, the data is normally sent to a server when the user clicks on the submit button for processing. For example, here, when the user clicks on send, this page can be sent to this backend, to the action page.php. This is where this form will be submitted to. That is the essence of the action attributes. So it says when the user clicks on this submit button, this information that is entered on all the fields within the form can be sent directly to this page. The method attributes. It is also very much important when developing forms. When you fill out a form and click submit, the browser needs to send that information somewhere, usually to a server. The way it sends the information is called the method. And there are two most common methods when it comes to form designs. These are the get method and the post method. We have the get and the post methods. The get method sends form data through the URL, and this is visible. Like for example, if you try to create a registration form, when the user enters their username, password, and all their information, when they click on send, that information will be visible on the URL bar. That is how the get method works. For the post method, it sends data through the URL bar, but that information is hidden. So that is why the post method is more secure when it comes to using methods. So for the get method, the data is visible in the URL. It's used for searches or when you are getting an information. It can be bookmarked or shared easily. And it is also not secure for password or private data. For the post method, the data is hidden from the URL. It's used for sensitive or large data like password, forms, uploads, as the case may be. It's more secure than the get method. So that is the difference between the get and the post. The name attribute is also very important when it comes to form design. You will notice that each field must have a name attribute. Whatever information is typed on this field, that information will be stored on the name attribute. If the name attribute is omitted, the value of that input field will not be sent. Let us understand this. So that when the user clicks on this submit button, what will happen? All information that is typed within the fields in the form can be saved within the name attribute. For example, for fname, whatever information is typed on the fname input field, it can be stored here, so that when the user clicks on submit, that information will be sent directly to the server for processing. So, but if this name attribute is omitted, that information will not be tracked easily. So that is how the name attribute works. So guys, let us now move on to our code editor and see the implementation of forms. Okay guys, we are now on our code editor. Let us see how we can implement forms in our web pages. So I'll start off by creating a new file. I'll call this forms.html. So within this file, I'm going to add a boilerplate. So here, I'll call this registration form, for instance. So if we preview this file, let us take a look at the browser and see what the display will look like. So from what you can see, we have registration form being displayed here for us. So in the next instance, we want to create the input fields. But before creating the input fields, we need to use the form tag. So you just type form. So when you press enter, we have the form here. Now, like I told you earlier, the action attribute here signifies that when the user clicks on the submit button of this form, all the details or the information of this form must be taken somewhere. So whatever is being typed here, when the form is submitted, the action that will be taken place here will be based on the direction that is being typed here. So that is the essence of the action attribute. So if we go back to our browser, you will not see anything here. So until we start to add some elements here. So let us start with the first name. Let's say we want to register with the first name, the last name, the email, and password. So I will say first name. So for the first name, I need an input field. I'll just say input of type text. So if we go back to the browser now, so we now have an input field for the first name. So I also want to add an input field for the last name. I'll say last name. Okay, let me just correct this one. So for the last name, I also need an input field for the last name of the type text. So if we go back to the browser, we have an input field for the last name now. So let us also add for email. For the email, I also need an input field for the email. But let me just change this to email so that this input field can be specified for emails only. Okay, so if we go back to our web page, you will see we have the email input field. So let us add another for password. For password, I need an input field of type password, or let me leave it for now so that we can see something. So if we go back, we have an input field for password. But for the password, if I type something here, you see clearly the information I'm typing here. So that is why for password, we need to change the type to password. So if we go back here, if I type something now, you will not see anything. Why? Because the type of this input field has been changed to password. So let us add one more for the button. I will say input. The type of this input is a submit, so that at the end of the day, when the user clicks on this input, that form will be submitted. So here, so you see we have a type of submit. So we have this. This is in an inline form. So let's say I'll add a BR tag here. I'll just copy this BR tag and add it across these ones. So BR, BR, and BR as well. So let me just paste these ones. So if we go back, so you now see this is for the first name. I will just type Ibrahim, and the last name. For the email, I'll just say at. So for the password, I'll just say password 123. So we now have the opportunity to submit this form. So this is how we can add forms within our web pages. Like I told you, we also have some input elements which are very much important when it comes to developing forms for our web pages. Let us start looking at these input elements. Okay, so I'm also going to create another form here. Let me just collab this for now. So I will say input form element. So if we go back, we have input form element. Here, the first input element I want us to look at is the input element. So here, I will say form. So within the form, we need something here. The HTML input element is the most used form of elements. The input element can be displayed in many ways depending on the type attributes. Here, let's start with the input type of text. So I'll say input. So this type is a text input. So this simply means whatever information that is to be typed within this input is supposed to be a text input. Okay. So if we go back to our web page, we now have this input. So this inputs can accommodate text. This is important. So another type of input we are to look at is the radio inputs. So the type of this will be a radio. So if we go back, you see we have something here. Is that also? So let us add another input here of type radio, and let's add a value to it which says product 2, for instance. So we now have the opportunity to click on these buttons, these radio buttons. So this is how the input type of radio normally works. It gives you the possibility to select product or to select items. Let us also look at another type of input, which is the checkbox. I will say input. The input of this type, I need checkbox. So let me also add a value here. The value here is Java. So if we go back, you see this is the checkbox and these are radio buttons. Okay, so this is the difference between them. For the checkbox, it is a square in nature, and for the radio button, they are circular in shape. Okay, we also have another type of input which is called the submit input. So instead of you using a button all the time, you can also change an input as your button. So I'll say input. So the type of this input, I need submit. So for the submit input here now, when we go back, you will see the button here. Okay, so this clearly shows that this input has been changed to a button. So let us also look at another. We have an input type of password. as we saw earlier. So instead of, for now, let me just leave this as a text, okay? So if we go back, for now, if we type anything here, it will be seen. So instead of us using text, all we need to do is for us to change this to become a password input. So whatever we'll be typing here now cannot be seen. So this is how we implement the password input type. We also have the reset input type. For this, let me just comment on these ones for now. So I'm going to add an input. Let's say input. For this input, I'll call this, okay, this is for text. And let me just use a placeholder. I'll say enter your name. So from there, if we go back, you'll see the input here. So after that, let's add another input type of password. So if you can see, we have, or let me just add a placeholder here. Enter your password. So let me just add a BR tag here. So for this one, we have enter your name and password. And let me just add this again so that we can have a space. Okay, so we now have a space between the inputs. So now, from there, I'm also going to add another input. The input type for this is submit. So if we take a look, so we have this. And let us also add another input. But the type of this input now will be reset. So what the reset normally does is that whenever you type something here, let's say for instance, we have Mohammed Lamin, and the password for Mohammed Lamin is password 123. So if we click on submit, the information that we typed within these input fields can be sent to the server for processing, okay? But if we click on reset, all information we have here can be wiped off. Now, for example, if we click on this submit, the information we type in here will be sent to the backend. But if we type something here, let's say Mohammed Sise, and here I will just say password 123. So if we click on reset, all information we've just written here can be wiped off. So this is how the reset inputs work. So let us also look at another input type. I'm going to comment this again. Let us look at the input type of date. So I'll say input. So the type of this input, I want to add a date. For the date, if we go back, you will definitely see something like this. The widget will be added. So if you click on this widget, you now have the possibility to add your dates. You can also choose the year. Okay, let's say in 2019, February, I want to select, let's say the 6th. So whatever date you select here can be added at once. So let us understand this. So I also want to look at something very important here when it comes to the input type, which is the max and min date. Now, so I'll say input. The input type for this is date. The max date that I want to be shown here is 2026 December 31st, and the min date I need let's say 2020 as the minimum date. The first, okay, January 2nd, I need something like this. So let me just comment this so that we can see this properly. So if we go back, this is our calendar. So now if we click here, you see the minimum here is 2020. This is what we've set here as the minimum year, and the maximum year supposed to be 2026. Look at it here. So which means we have the leverage of setting our calendar the way we want. Okay, this is important. Now, this is how we add date to our input fields. So now we also have the datetime local type. Okay, this simply means it gives you not only the dates, it also add the time for you. So now let's say input. So the type here is datetime local. For datetime local, let me just comment these ones. So here, or let me uncomment it so that you can see something. So let's take a look here. Let me add a BR tag here. BR times 2. Okay. So for this one, you can only see the dates, the calendar for your dates. But for this, you have both the calendar for your dates and the time. Okay, so for instance, if I want to select today's date as well as the time, let's say I need this one to be the time. Yeah. So you see, we now have today's date and the time that I've just selected. So this is how the input type datetime local normally works. So we also have another input type, which is called the email type. Let me say input. So here I want to type email. So if we go back to our browser, let's just add something. Or for instance, let me just add a button here. I'll just say input. Type is submit. Okay. So here, let me just say, or let me just type something like this. So if we try to click on submit, there will be an indication that says, please include an @ in the email address. So which means we have set a validation. Okay, this is like a basic validation for you so that the user can be able to enter only an email on this input field. So now if we add the @ and try to click on submit, it is also not complete. We also need to add .com, for example. So let's say @email.com. Okay, let me see. I'll say test at email.com. So this is now valid. But if you just type something without the addition of the @ symbol as well as the other parameters for the email, it will throw an error for you. So this is how the email type normally works. So let us also look at another input type. So we have the file type. The file type is also important. So input, the file type is used for the users to be able to select files like Word documents, images, videos, you name it. So here, let me say the type I want to use here is file. So within this file, so this is the output for file. Okay, let me just add BR times 3 here. So from this one, you have the possibility to upload files. So I'll go to my downloads. Let's say, for example, I'll select this. So you submit. So that is it. You also have the possibility to select documents, okay, like this PowerPoint. You can submit this one. You also have the ability to select videos. Let's say, for example, I want to select this. It is also a file. So this is the essence of the file type. Now, let us also look at another input element, which is called the search type. Here, I'll say input. The type of this input is search. So when we go back to the browser, let me say BR times just 2. So this is the search input. So here, whatever information you type here and click send, it can be regarded as a search input. For now, you will see it as a normal input field, but it is a search field as been declared here in the type attribute. So this is how the search inputs work. Let us also look at the label element here. The label is also very much important. Now, I'll say input. This input is for the first name, but how can I be able to identify that this input is for the first name? So with the use of the label element here, I'll say label. So the label here is for the first name. I'll type here first name, so that when the user sees this, it will know this is for the first name. So I'll also add another for the last name. So here I'll just say so BR times 4. So I'll just change this to last name. So now, so from what you can see, this is for the first name. There is a clear label that indicates this field. This label also indicates that this field is for the last name. So this is how the label element works. Now we have another attribute called the placeholder attribute. Let's say input, I want this to be the first name. This input field is for the first name. So I'll add a placeholder. So this placeholder, I'll type in first name. So when the user sees this, he will know, okay, this field is for the first name. But interestingly, when you start to type, the first name text you are seeing here will be disappeared. So this is how the placeholder works. So let me add another. I'll call this last name. So if we go back to the browser, you see last name, first name, and last name. This is how the placeholder attribute works. Let us also look at another element, which is called a select element. It is also important when it comes to the creation of forms. So the select element will give you the ability to select in different options, meaning there's several options that will be added within the select element. So you have the ability now to select whatever information you want to select from this select element. So I will say select. So within the select, I'll have options here that I will add. I'll say option. The first option here is for selecting a product. I'll say select product. So go back to our web browser, you'll see select product. So for now, there's nothing added here. So you see this drop down arrow and the text select product. So which simply means the user should be able to click on this and see the product below. So here, I'll just add something like this. I'll call this product 1. I'll just call this computer. I'll call this mouse. And I'll call this system unit. So we'll go back to the browser and see. So when the user clicks on this, you will see computer, mouse, and system unit. These are all elements that have been added within your forms. Now, this is how we can add elements within the form. And also, one key thing you must note here is that whenever you are creating a form within your web page, there is something very important that you need to know. Let me just comment this so that I can explain it better for you guys. So let's say input. So I'll call this placeholder. I'll call this first. Enter first name. And I'll say enter last name and enter password. Or let me just add another. Enter confirm password. Or let me just say password. Password. And confirm password. So let me just add BR tags here. So I'll say BR times 2. I need 2 BR tags for each line. So here, so we have this. Now, the name attribute is very much important when it comes to form creation. All the information that you type within these fields, this information will be sent somewhere. It will be sent to the server. Now, the server side also have to process this information. In order for the server side to accept or receive this information, we must pass a name attribute here so that when we click on the send button, this information can be sent directly to the server. So I'll say name. So this first field, I'll just say F name. For this, I'll say L name. For this, I'll say password 1. And for this, I'll say password 2. Okay. So of course, it will not be visible, as you can see. But interestingly, whatever information you type here can be captured by these names you've entered here for the name attribute. So guys, that is it. I hope you understand the basics of creating a form. In our next video, we'll be looking at more advanced features when it comes to some of these forms we've created within this video. Thank you for watching this video, and don't forget to leave a comment on the comment section, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe. I hope to see you on the next video.